We can't hear you.
Bye. How about now?
Now we can. It's good.
All right.
Morning.
Who knows? Good morning. Good Friday morning. We've got our Finance Friday with us today. My plan is to talk a little bit about credit repair. Nicole and I just went down to New York City for a little Zillow mastermind with some of the larger teams, and credit repair was one of those things that we talked about pretty heavily. So we'll get into that a little bit, but like we normally do, I want to open the floor. Anybody have anything just absolutely pressing going on in the real estate world, in their personal world, or in some combination thereof? What do you guys have? Don't do it to me. Don't give me those quiet mics. Man, it is May. If you are on this call and you are not doing deals, we got issues. This is go time. What's going on those transactions? Share your stories. We can do credit repair. All right, we're going to go there. Dan, these are some questions for you. I think you guys kind of just make some general recommendations. That's my understanding when it comes to credit repair. Is that accurate, or do you guys have a system that you enroll them in, or a third-party platform, or how do you guys handle it? And then I'll kind of talk about why I think this is so important right now.
Yeah, sure. And good morning, everybody. Yeah, so as far as like credit recommendation, I mean, we can definitely look at it and say, if you do this and that, this will help you get your, improve your score. But there is another level to it that we go in some cases, where, and the way that we go about it has actually recently changed. So through the credit reporting company that we pull our credit reports through, and obviously, like, the credit bureaus are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, but the credit reporting company we use is called Zactus, and Zactus provides us our credit reports, all our supplements, and everything. If we request a rapid rescore, it goes through Zactus. They have tools that are available to us that we use to. So the reason I say it's changed is because there used to be two ways to do it. One of them was called a what if simulator, and we can go into this tool and it pulls up all the clients' accounts that they have, and then we'd say, what if the balance on this were paid down to this amount, or what if the status on this was changed from a derogatory collection to a paid in full collection, and things like that. And then that would say, all right, if you do that, that would increase your score by so much. There was also a way that we could basically say like a target score increase, and say we want to get his TransUnion and Equifax scores up by 40 points. And the guy has $8,000 available to use. What are your suggestions to do that? And then it would tell us specifics. Pay down this account to this amount. And that's more what it's like now. So they've kind of merged those two tools into one, where instead of it being an automated system that I use, it actually gets assigned a rep from the credit reporting agency, and they'll go in there, and basically it's the same type of thing where I say I have a target score increase that I need, and then they're going to give us some detailed recommendations on what to do, and it'll let us know if it's something where our target can be achieved in a 30-day time period, or if it's 6 months, or I've seen in some cases, like I ran one yesterday and it said, unless this charge off is paid, you will not be able to reach your target score within the next 6 months. So we can get into detail on what needs to be done, but then again, it's all up to the client to actually act on all of that, and a lot of times it takes them, it requires them to come up with some money to pay these accounts down, or pay them off, or settle them in some way. So, ideally, if the client has the sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I have this money for down payment, but my credit stinks. You look at it and it's like, well, if you pay this and that, then you can get approved and you don't need to use all your money for the down payment. You can do a 3.5% down, and now that your credit qualifies, or maybe now that you've increased your credit, use the money to increase your credit, now you can get a down payment assistance program or something like that. So that's kind of how we go about it. As far as like enrolling them in a program, not so much. We basically would run the report, see what needs to be done, send it over to them, and then throw them on the calendar to follow back up in 30 days or what have you, and go from there.
Yeah, and the reason I want to bring this up is just coming out of that conference, or mastermind, if you will, buyers are going to be thin, right? The market's thin pretty much everywhere. Some markets worse than others. Might be time to kind of go back through those clients that you're like, man, this guy really wanted to buy, but just credit score wasn't there. How aggressive were we with those clients? There's just right now, we don't have the luxury of just going, oh, there'll be another buyer coming. There'll be another buyer coming. We've got to really comb through the contacts that we have and try and figure out how can we get these people into a house. And we just had somebody that was pretty vocal, an agent at this mastermind, that she personally went through the process, right? And at this point, you could chat GPT it and come up with, the 10 different things that you can do to improve your credit score. But she was just adamant about her personally hand-holding, because she had just gone through it, her own clients, right? Learning some stuff that she didn't realize, getting aggressive with the creditors. When you've got a payoff of $1,000, can you get that creditor on the line and get it paid off for $400 right now? I'll send you the $400 right now. Can you get that removed off my credit score type of stuff? So not just kind of going through the normal, keeping your balances low, or, having the right amounts of revolving credit. It just seemed like a time right now where this is something that we should focus on. We should be educated on it. I think we've tended to lean on the lenders. So Dan, I appreciate you sharing kind of what you guys do. But if you've got that right buyer, this might be something that you want to help them with. Maybe you want to try it on your own credit score, right? Try a couple of the things. See what the process is like. When you've been through it, it's much easier to tell the story. I mean, when this woman got up and spoke, she said something to the effect of she changed her credit score by over 100 points within like 72 hours, because she was able to get a couple of these things dropped off and not having to pay them off fully. So I don't know how accurate that part of changing it that quick. I thought it was always a couple of weeks on a rapid rescore. But that's what she said. So I don't know if anybody else has any other stories. When I pulled the top 10 things about credit, the one thing that I didn't realize that you could do is you can get yourself added to another family member's credit. So get added to a credit card, right? Where that's got a good payment history, et cetera. And that can actually bump your score up. So that was one. They call it just says become an authorized user on a well-managed credit card. So you borrow, that card's good payment history onto your credit score. So that was an interesting one to me that I had never heard of. I don't know if anybody else wants to kind of share. Margaret, I see your hand up. What do you got?
Yeah, so I was actually surprised, but leave it to the young ones. You can learn a thing or two. Credit Karma has come up quite a bit for me when I talk to people, how they rebuild their credit or even create credit, especially when you don't have any, when you're young and just starting up in the world. So, the Credit Karma seems to have quite a bit of tips on what to do. They even suggest, this is the card for you. If you don't have any credit, we'll allow you to prepay on this card, but we'll monitor this. If you're paying on time, then we'll improve your credit. It's a very two-way way, I guess, which I was surprised that, you hear about Credit Karma. I have never really used it, but I've heard from several people now that it has really helped them and kind of pinpointing and even give them solution. Here's your credit card, use this one, and then we're going to switch it to this credit card. So it really evolves them into something. and keeps those tips and keeps you tracked on making sure you can create budgets even. So something to look for. I've also have to say, most lenders, I have some that like have really gone into it more versus others. I wish almost there was something that would help buyers with that, because I really don't have too many, tools in my toolbox for that. So I'm really open to hear more about this.
I mean, I think the other thing, Margaretta, just in general, just like when we're doing a real estate transaction, if we're relying on the client to do something, to do the research, to go and take action, I just don't know how much they're going to do it, right? I always say a good agent drives the bus. This is another scenario, right? Be adamant about this. Drive the bus. Man, I really love you guys. It's been great working with you. I'd love to see you do X, Y, and Z. What do you need help with? Right. I just had some other clients. Maybe you connect them with another client that has been through the process. I'd love to just connect you guys just so you could see it's really not that difficult. I think some people, this might seem overwhelming. So that's why I encourage you guys to go through the process yourself, and see what the process is like. Even if you just changed, 5 or 10 points on your own credit score, but you knew a couple of things, you'll sound a little bit more educated when you're having that conversation. So. Maria, I see you posted in here. Did you want to share that story? Is that?
Yeah, so my sister was on my mom's credit. She added her to it, and her credit score was great. It was like 7 something. And when she went to go apply for a car loan, the guy told her that it basically didn't count, that they could see that she's on my mom's credit and she doesn't have any built credit herself. So I don't know how they could
Well,
see that.
so
I can
Dan, go
jump
ahead.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so being added as an authorized user to a card definitely helps. That's one of the suggestions that we'll make for people sometimes. Ask if that's an option, especially if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, my dad's willing to co-sign for me," and the credit's not quite there. So, well, can dad add you on to one of his cards as an authorized user, and you do get the benefit of all that. I don't know what their standards are for lending at the car dealerships and everything, but for us, that's going to impact your credit score, and it is what it is. We're not going to exclude that, that factor in and say without that your credit score would be something else. We wouldn't do that. And
Dan,
then
the only thing I'm thinking there is maybe there just wasn't enough credit, right? So if I've got some of my own credit established and then I get added to an authorized user, it's going to help me. But if all I have is the authorized user, could that be potentially the issue of, because it sounds like
right,
maybe that's what's going on there.
it could be something like that, or it could be, we don't know what the scenario is, what her credit is before being added. If it was just a lack of credit, then maybe it is that you don't have enough of your own credit history. When we're looking at it, typically it's something supplemental. They've already got their own credit history, and it's like, all right, let's get added on. Another suggestion that we make at times for people, and this is along the lines like that Credit Karma that
Margaretta. Oh, did we lose Dan, or is it just me? Oh, you muted yourself, Dan. What happened there? There we go.
Oh, I scrolled over to look at Margaretta on my phone.
Yeah.
No, so the Credit Karma is definitely helpful for consumers that are trying to keep track of what they have going on their credit, to know what range their credit is in, whether it's fair, poor, excellent, or good. Like it's good for that. The scores aren't going to necessarily match up with what we see when we pull it. But along the same lines of that, maybe some of the recommendations they make on there too, is being able to like maybe getting your utilities self-reported onto your credit. So if you have a limited credit history, your credit's maybe not perfect, you can get your cell phone bill added onto there. Basically, you'll have to provide evidence of what your bill is, and you provide a payment history, and then they add that on there. And that starts to help build trade lines for you and show a positive payment history that will definitely help over time. Margaret also mentioned like a secured credit card. That's, again, if somebody has poor credit and they're trying to get credit cards and they're getting turned down, basically a secured one is, say, you send us $500 and we'll give you a credit card with a $500 limit that you can use. And then, and so, but then that, again, that reports as a positive trade line on their credit. But back to the original thing I jumped in on, as far as the authorized user, we look at that. We wouldn't hold the buyer or the borrower accountable for the payment or liable for the payment. So let's say you get added onto your dad's Amex. He uses it as like an open Amex, right? Because say your Amex doesn't have a credit limit and it doesn't report a minimum payment due, right? So for us as a lender, we look at that a little differently than you have your regular credit card with a $50 payment. We use a percentage of the balance or go, another method for it. But if you're on it only as an authorized user, then we can, without anything else, we can just exclude that from your debt ratio, because we know it's not your debt. You're just on somebody else's account.
Cool. Amber, I see your hand up. What do you got?
So on that credit card thing, when my son was like 15 or 16, I added him to my open Amex. But I put a $500 limit on it so that he couldn't spend more than that. But I found that it didn't affect anything unless he actually used his card to spend the money. So like when we went school shopping, he would use his card. Obviously, I'd be paying it just so that he could build some credit. And then like we went tuck shopping, he used his card. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I found that it changed more when he was physically using his card.
Interesting. Great little tip there. Adam, I saw your hand up as well. What did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some perspective that there are different styles of scores. So there is a automotive, there's a different score that they use, different algorithm for when you're buying a car versus when you're buying a mortgage. And of course, the mortgage one is the most scrutinized and the hardest to get highest, because you're, typically signing up for a 30-year amortization, where a car is, a 5-year amortization. So just be aware, if someone said, hey, I just went to the dealership, we got a car, I was a 760, that same exact person could be a 720 or a 710 or something. So I know, just real life scenario, in the middle of refinancing, my Credit Karma score was 40 points off from my mortgage score. So just be careful with Credit Karma. As Eric said, it's a great way to monitor that no one's using your cards and kind of where you stack up against the rest of the country, but definitely not reliable for a mortgage score.
Linda, what do you got?
So with my twins, when they went to college, I had both of them added onto one of my credit cards as, authorized users, and I instructed each of them to use the card for their gas purchases. And so they did that consistently, and in short order, they started receiving offers through the mail for other credit cards. And because they were using it, and I had really stellar credit, and because they were paying down every month, or I was paying down, because they were using just a small percentage of what was offered monthly for the credit limit, they started getting their own credit card offers, and they were able to really start building their credit that way. And then they just carried on with then opening their own cards and using them very, very conservatively. Like the debt ratio to whatever the amount of credit was that they were offering makes a huge difference in your credit score. So I think they say that they want you to be using about a third of what they offer you in terms of your credit limit consistently, and pay it off consistently. And that's one of the elements that wins you a really great credit score. So they both did that, and they were then able to, so it was like a springboard for them to get excellent credit cards with great rates. And, so it just really set them up for success.
It's a great share. I personally, noticed this with my own credit cards. I never, I've been using a credit card since college. I have never, not paid off my credit card. The statement comes in, I pay it off. But what I didn't realize is that's not good enough. Right. So let's say you have a $10,000 credit line and you're charging $9,000 every month. Well, they're looking at that going, man, this guy's really close to, being in trouble here. So we had to go and start to pay twice a month. It might have even gotten to the point where we went weekly on a couple of cards that had lower credit lines that we were using. Right. So just that's something to keep in mind. It's like your credit utilization. So how close to your limits, your capacity are you getting? So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then the other thing is setting a reminder somehow on your phones every 6 months to go ask for a credit increase. Right. So on that $10,000 card, I knew personally my personal, charges every month, I would never spend more than $10,000. So I was like, I don't need any more than that. In 20 years, I had never asked for an increase in my credit line. Now I just have an email that hits my inbox every 6 months. I go in there, you tap a button, it gives you, usually another $2,500. So now, hey, I'm using 9,000 of maybe 25,000. So now you might not have to pay it off, twice a month or every week, et cetera. So those are a couple of easy tips that are working for me. Margaret, I see your hand up.
Yeah, this reminds me. I want to give people example because it's mind blowing how this works really, and it seems to be this black magic. But I have two Discover cards, and one I use frequently, one I don't. And I was trying to get my credit increase or based on or something, and I had very good score. It was like in 800s, and then when I utilized one of my cards more frequently. So obviously there's a variable in how much your credit utilization is. And it was funny how it would lower my score down to 700. Obviously somebody was high 800s, 700, what are you doing to me? So the bottom line is the lesson I learned between the two cards, because one wasn't utilized and one was, and it was just about how much of that credit you're using. It's as long as you stay within 3%, it didn't seem to impact much of your credit score. But if I used anything still within that, it was just 6%, my credit score would drop by 20 to 30 points. And I'm like, this is insane. But it seems to be that sensitive to how much of that credit you utilize. And obviously credit cards are there for credit. But and I pay credit cards right off the bat. I don't, linger. So it's insane how that points and vary from out. And just to highlight, because I know quite a bit about car industry and car loans, those loans are very different from lender to lender. It's the number one thing for loans, house loans, they're very regulated. Car loans, not so much. And I think that's why that's so much difference in how the credit is applied to those loans.
Yeah, thanks, Margareta. Linda, I don't know if you had another thought.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me lower my hand.
Right?
Sorry.
All right.
Steve, one
Dan?
other thing that you had mentioned there, as far as with your card and your personal experience, paying it a couple times throughout the month to manage that balance so that they're not reporting you, using that highest balance. That's a great tip. One other kind of thing to think about as far as that goes is also just when your statement comes out. Right? You don't necessarily have to go in and pay it every couple weeks, but just be aware, if your statement date is the first of every single month, then that's when your creditor is going to produce your statement and send that balance to the credit bureaus, because that's when they report the balance, is when they provide your monthly statement. So and they don't all come on the first. So that's why I say look on your statements and see, what, not your due date, but what your statement date is. And you can just simply go in the week before it and make your payment to that card, whether you're paying it off in full or if you're going to pay it to say you did pay half and then pay half, because you do want them to report some balance and some usage on it. I think it was Linda had mentioned, around 1/3. That's the number I've been told as well when I've talked with the people at Zactus, the credit company, about the credit rescores and stuff that we do. That's the ideal number for that they want to see is around 1/3. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, basically to be aware when your creditor is reporting that balance, and that's when they provide your monthly statement.
One other thing I'll
So
just
that
throw.
question of that then. So would it be matter like if we set up all our cards like to be paid on the 1st, or when do they report them? Is it on the 1st or on the 30th?
No, it depends on the creditor. Like some of your credit cards might send you your statement on the 1st of every month. Some might come out on the 10th. Like it depends. So I would just look at like your most recent statement that you get from Chase or Capital One or whatever. I think you said Discover you have. I would just look at your most recent Discover statement and see what it says is the statement date. And that's going to stay relatively the same every month. Like if usually they might be the 1st, but some of them are different. So I would just check.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll just share just a personal tip on credit cards as well. I'm not really a points guy with like air miles and stuff like that. I'm more I like the cash back stuff. And I think your best cards are typically around 2%, or maybe they'll have some kind of a bonus, 3%, 4%, 5%, depending on how you spend. But one of the things I just realized, and we just changed over, we obviously, and I'm assuming most of the world is in this position of spending a lot through Amazon. And so the Amazon has their own credit card that is 5% on Amazon purchases, which is pretty wild. So if you're somebody that you are spending on Amazon every month, and you're using your regular 2% card, I mean, 3% difference it's a lot when you're looking at the entire year. So simple little switch. If you're spending a lot on Amazon, go check out, I think it's like they call it the Visa Prime card or something like that. So
You have to get one for my wife.
Right. Yeah.
Don't do that. You'll spend more, Dan.
Yeah.
Trust me, I have one.
Anybody have any other just, hey, I made this little change, whether it's just in your personal finance with regards to credit cards or anything like that, that'd be a good share for the group?
Hey, I'll throw one more tip in there just to, I think it was Dan's point. If you pull up your credit card, if you're trying to get, I have multiple credit cards. So if you go on Credit Karma and view your credit report, it'll basically show you all of those dates that they report them on, right? So one might be the 21st, one might be the 3rd. So instead of having to log into all your accounts, if you just go into Credit Karma, pull your report, you can see when they're reporting the date. And because I'm monitoring my credit like a hawk right now, and so let's say I know it's due and that they're going to run it on the 21st, I make sure that payment's in, 18th or 19th. So just a quick way to scan all your cards just to see when the payments are due.
Anybody else make any changes recently, or a little personal finance tip or anything that would add some value before we wrap it up?
Don't spend.
Don't spend.
That's a great tip, Margareta, in all seriousness.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully there was a little takeaway, whether it's for you and your personal finances or something that's going to help one of your clients today. A lot of interaction, as always. I appreciate when you guys are coming and alive and full of energy and willing to share. That's what makes this a great call. So thank you so much for contributing today. Dan, thanks for your knowledge and always joining us on Finance Friday. Hope you guys have a awesome weekend. Go put some deals together and jot down some notes, and let's talk about those deals on Monday. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.